Hey everyone, welcome back to Null Reference. So today what I wanted to do was try to expand my skill set a little bit and comfort level with making drawings and paintings of things that look like they have some type of material surface. Previously I've just been kind of looking at tones and just going from there, just trying to get some shade on the paper. And but this time I wanted to really make something look like it's an actual object. And the reference that I'm going with right now is like a metal surface. So it's the same thing I've been doing before, really just building out a shape. In this case, it's just a box with a bit of an edge on it. And on that box, there's going to be a street light essentially, and it will reflect down onto the box, and I'm trying to make it look like glossy, so that you might think that it's made of metal rather than, I don't know, maybe some type of matte finish or something or other. And for that, I mean, metal objects, they typically have a lot more contrast on them. They have that kind of shine, whereas a matte would be generally more of a flat color, not too many value differences on the surface. So I'm going to be doing that and seeing how it comes out. So I start out as usual with my line drawings. This vertical stick is where I'm planning to put the light source, and now I'm drawing out the box here, kind of drawing and erasing lines until I get ones that are straight to my liking. So it takes, a little bit of effort to really get something that looks correct and something where I haven't, curved the line too much. I'm not super great at it. I don't know if anyone really gets that great at it. Everyone kind of follows this process. And it just depends on either how comfortable you are with it, or maybe how comfortable you are with, kind of working with whatever you put down on the paper and kind of fixing it as you go. I like to get it as good as I can to start with, right now at least, just because that's what I'm feel comfortable doing. So I have shaped it out. As I said, it's pretty much just a box now with just this one feature on it. It's just kind of got that, just that one lip curve, bezeled curve, I suppose that's what it's called. And now I'm just kind of going back and saying like, all right, well, that first line didn't work out so well. Let me give that another shot, another 800 shots, because, yeah, it takes a little bit. So now I've separated out some of the layers, and that's kind of why I keep turning things on and off. I also realized that I wanted to make the light source, a little bit higher, and I like to organize it such that once I have the line drawing, I can combine it all together. But if you separate it out, you can erase them without erasing the lines that you just drew. So you can kind of use the technology to help you out. So for this one, it's going to be like a night scene. So the back, I figured it would be nice to start with a black background instead of a white background to paint that. And I am kind of just roughly mapping out the where I think the texture of light is going to be for this scene. So it's really important to work with a big brush. If you look at the kind of textures that I'm going with, having a big brush is really important so that you don't have to actually try to make these surfaces later and make it kind of look, sort of gritty afterwards. I suppose you could do it if you laid something on top of it. But where I'm at right now, I kind of like this way of working where I just work with a big brush and then I erase afterwards. It's a pretty typical way of working. It does get a nice smooth side of things, and it makes it so that I don't get too worried about the details of like this, that, or the other thing that's happening. So I wanted to be a bit more flexible here than I usually am, and that I think came back to bite me a little bit. I tried to be a little more general and just try to get some color on, and then I thought I was going to refine afterwards. But I think as it goes through, and what I felt when I was doing it is that really wasn't the best approach, because then I would have to erase all of this again, and I ended up not really enjoying that too much. So, I think moving forward, I'm going to try to get as much as I can done on like the first coat, and then maybe working a different way from there. But I definitely don't want to leave something that isn't right the first time. So the that front-facing corner is going to be the first part that hits the light. So that one's going to be the brightest. You get some bounce light off of the bottom, so that'll come up. That's why the bottom piece is a little bit lighter than the top of it. If you're looking at the front-facing portion, the one facing me is the darkest because that one the light is actually kind of on the other side, so it shouldn't be traversing over that edge too well. But there is some reflected light onto it to give it a little more texture. And it's coming together, it's not coming together too poorly. This is where I was like, okay, I got, kind of the colors I wanted, and then see where it ends up. And now I'm trying to figure out how to add that next layer of color onto it so it looks like a metallic object. And I think this is where I started to have the most difficulty, playing around with different things, and then, realizing that some of my lines were not very good at all. I actually started to go back here now, and what I'm doing is I'm kind of happy with that first layer of paint on, and now I'm drawing out where I think the shadow should end up of the object itself from the light source. And as I said, it's a little bit further back from the object, so it should kind of cast the shadow that moves into the view of the user, and not the user, software term, of the viewer. And so what I'm trying to do now is, I had a lot of trouble getting a straight line, and what you can do is zoom out a bit and then try to make another straight line traversing, it's kind of like an optimal length that gets you the lines that you're kind of used to and work well for you. So I kind of shortened them down to about that length. What you do is really you want to use no wrist, all arm and elbow and shoulder movement, and that's going to make sure that you draw the straightest line, because you don't have more motor function in like your fingers and wrists that can kind of mess up your line. So yeah, now I'm trying to figure out how I want to put down the shadow. Again, I'm taking a couple different colors and then just just like placing them right over the image, and then erasing from there. And I think I was making a little bit of a mistake in my layers. I know I had a couple issues with layers. But yeah, so the darkest part is actually going to be right closest to the object, and as it moves further away from the object, it's going to get a little bit lighter, because you can light will reflect off of other things and come back around to it. So that provides like a nice effect to give the object some weight and some permanence, like in the real world. I did try to note where the light source was by using a tiny bit of white up at the top. Got a little frustrated there. So now I've kind of noticed that it's starting to look sort of metallic, but it doesn't really feel like an object in space. It feels kind of like a sort of amorphous blob when I take the lines away. So I'm trying to solve that problem and go back and clean up some of the work that I had done. Previously I decided that first layer of paint that I put down wasn't quite right, a little bit too bright on that side. So now I'm trying to go back and erase, and then I'm finding that I have to do all of my erasing work again, and I've messed up some things, and some things weren't on the right layers. So I kind of had to go in and do a little bit more fix-up work than I wanted to. But it ended up working out, I think. But I am trying a number of different options to make this look metallic, and try to focus on making the colors right. I kind of go back and forth and erase and put more stuff down, and erase and put more stuff down. But really drawing all the when I paint or put charcoal down, try to draw through the form with a light stroke and then erase away. And that way I don't have to worry about, it blends nicer. The software and the way it goes down, it ends up looking a little bit more blended and a little bit more believable in terms of its look. So I do zoom out a bit often, and then zoom in and zoom out, and it can give you a different sense of how well you've painted the image or how you've painted it. Another good thing to do, which I haven't been doing, but another good thing to do is flip the image horizontally or vertically, or however you want to work, and that gives you like a different perspective on what you've drawn. It can really kind of help you understand where some problems might lie, and some of the things that you're looking at that you're not picking up on. It can show you some interesting stuff about your work. So as I clean up the edges and things like that, it's starting to look a little more real. I'm pretty okay with the background, and at least so far, you know, it's looking like it has a little bit of weight. I have a couple lines down there that make it, but you know, right where the front of the object facing the light hits the ground, I do need a little bit more detail. Making the contrast between the other edge and the background helps, you know, solidify the image. And I was pretty okay with the front top, but I think I'd go back to that in a little bit and try to fix it up a little bit more. But I did spend a lot of time on these edges because I felt like it really was the edges of this object that really made it look like something real. And having fuzzy edges or you know, bad lines or bad erasures just wasn't helping it feel like I had put work into building building the object in perspective, especially with that. And I think I am going back and redrawing the entire, maybe not the entire shadow, but I am going back and trying to take a look at, make sure that I differentiated between where the shadow ends and where the object ends. Because I can see there's I remember this tiny edge that I'm going to be working with now, and trying to clean that up, so that the shadow doesn't go in front of the object, which is where it was. But yeah, I need to work better in terms of my layering, and if you do it right, you don't have to do all this work back and forth cleaning up edges. But I kind of didn't really have a great process when I was doing this, and I wasn't thinking about it too well and organizing my layers, so I had to keep going back and forth, taking a look at edges and trying to kind of hack them back together, which was kind of difficult and not a whole lot of fun really to have to go back and do edges. I'm really not a huge fan. That's probably my least favorite part. I mean, it's pretty satisfying to wipe it away, but so what I think it came out pretty okay. I can tell that it's like a metallic object, and I'm pretty happy with it in that regard. I'm gonna keep working on it to try to make it well, not that one, but kind of keep working on this idea of rendering objects and trying to figure out how to make them look like they have different textures on them, make them look like they are different objects in space. So going to be continuing that kind of work in the next few videos, and maybe I think I'll probably continuing to work in charcoal for quite a while until I get really a lot more comfortable with this. But I think the main takeaway is just to make sure that I control my layers better, and try to get things right the first time if you can. And I think those are the two things I'm going to improve on, but definitely I just have to practice this set of skills even more. Alright everyone, so that was just another quick drawing talk through, and hopefully it was maybe helpful to anyone out there. I know that I learned a lot doing it, and I started to feel a lot more confident now that I look at it later on and kind of had a break from it, feeling like I've actually done what I set out to do, which is really an important feeling to have when you're creating artwork. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.